Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's presentation. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you can hear us and that you're able to submit questions to us via the chat feature or the questions panel. So to make sure that you're able to hear us and know where that panel is, please let us know where are you joining us from today. You can let us know in the questions or chat feature. This way we can see that you're able to hear us, and also this will be the way that you'll submit questions throughout today's presentation. While I wait for folks to let us know where you're joining us from today, I want to tell you a little bit about how today's presentation will run. Myself and Sarah Scruggs, and we'll introduce ourselves shortly, we'll go through today's presentation, and you'll have an email that you'll receive that will have the presentation, it'll have a recording, and it'll also have some handouts. Wonderful. So I see that folks are submitting through the chat that they're joining us from home. Some folks said from Somerville, Cambridge. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for using that questions panel. We know that in these times it's hard because we're not in front of each other, we can't see each other, but please, we want this to be engaging. Oh, Weymouth, wonderful. So we want to make this an engaging presentation. We want to make sure that we're answering any questions that you have. So use that questions chat feature. Oh, someone's joining us from the gym. I love that. Getting your workout physically and financially. I love that. Thank you. So please use that chat feature throughout our presentation tonight. And no worries if there's a question that comes up that we don't have time to answer, or if you think about something, maybe in the next day or 2 weeks or months from now, you'll have our email addresses and you'll be able to email us directly. So who exactly are we? My name is Migdalia Gomez. I am the Community Engagement Manager at the Harvard University Employees Credit Union, and I'm joined by Sarah Scruggs, who's our Community Engagement Specialist. Sarah and I work at Harvard's not-for-profit financial institution, HBCU, and what is different about a credit union and a bank is that a credit union is not-for-profit. So we were created by Harvard for Harvard community. As part of the Harvard community, we understand the needs of those that are in our membership. So a lot of our products are tailored specifically to meet our population's need. All of you are eligible for membership through BIDMC because BIDMC is a Harvard teaching hospital, and everyone in your household is also eligible through your membership. That's all that I will say about the credit union, but if there are any questions or if you want to learn more, please let us know. We also will send you some information in the chat so that you have that available to you. So during today's presentation, there's a lot that we're going to cover, and we're going to try our best to give you tangible examples so that you can take some. I hope you have some pen and paper near you, or if you prefer typing it, you have a Word doc, so you can take some notes, because we really are hoping this is going to be more of an active presentation, meaning that we're going to give you different tasks. We understand that some of them you won't be able to complete while you're on the webinar, but for those, we hope those will be your next steps, that maybe you'll do them later on this week or weekend. So the first step when we're thinking about debt repayment and essentially trying to get ourselves into a better financial situation, the first step is to understand, where are we currently? Now, where are we currently? There's always going to be the numbers piece, and we will always talk numbers because, again, finances, money, a lot of numbers are involved here. But we understand that it's not just the finances, it's not just the numbers. There's a lot more that goes into, there's a lot more that goes into finances, and a lot of the time it can be mental. So what we're going to do, we're also going to give you different tips on what you can do to mentally improve your financial situation. One of the things that you can do is understand, where are you now? Why are you trying to repay your debt during these times? Are you trying to repay your debt because maybe you're interested in accomplishing another financial goal? Are you trying to repay your debt because perhaps you are in a situation that your debt has cost you too much and maybe has delayed some of your financial goals? So the next activity that we have is to have you think about actually listing your debts. Under our handout section, there is a debt repayment handout. If you have any issues being unable to access that, please let us know via the chat feature. But you should be able to access that under the handouts. And again, if you have any issues, please let me know. What we recommend with listing your debt is Sarah and myself have met with individuals. We've helped folks when it comes to their personal finances. And many times when we're talking about debt, we sort of know, yes, I owe X number on student loans. Yes, I owe, I think I owe maybe 3,000 on my credit card, maybe 4,000. We may not be quite sure how much we actually owe on our debt. So one of our recommendations, and this is one of those exercises, it's not necessarily the most fun, but it is one of those that it's going to be beneficial. And it's going to tie this all in with the other activities that we have towards the end of the session. And this step is listing your debt. So this means actually going to your statements, going onto your apps and looking at what do I actually owe? What's the actual balance on my car loan? Is it you don't have to necessarily go to the penny, depending on what you have, but round up, try to get it as accurate as possible. And then the next step, what is the interest rate? Many times for our debt, we may not know the interest rate, especially for credit card debt. That is something that I would always recommend going onto sometimes the credit card statement. Sometimes it's not as available depending on the app that you're using or online banking. They might not list the interest rate, but on the statements, they usually provide much more information. So if you're having any difficulties accessing any of this information, we recommend logging onto the website and going directly to the statement. And I see someone that mentioned that they are unable to see this handout. So thank you. We will put it in the chat where you can download it or we'll email it to you as well. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. And Sarah just dropped it on the chat where you can actually go and download it right now. Thank you for letting us know. Now, this other part is going to be listing your monthly payments. Now, when you list this, you're going to have, and the document that we shared, that's a good starting point. If you prefer Excel, go with Excel. If you preferred writing it down on pen and paper, go with that. Remember that, again, the behavioral finance, what is going to work best for you is what you prefer. So if you dislike Excel, do not use Excel for this exercise. If you go with what's more comfortable, go with what's more familiar, so that you are not creating additional friction or barriers to get through these exercises. Now, once you start listing, you want to list the amount, the interest rate. I didn't note it here, but you want to know if it's fixed or variable. Nowadays, most of the rates are going to be fixed because they're fairly low, and we'll talk about rates and debt repayment and refinancing. We'll get into all of those details, but during this piece, we're just talking about calculating the cost of your debt. So list the interest rate, the terms, which essentially means how much longer do you have to repay this, and your monthly payment. Now, once you get to this point, the next step is going to be the point that's going to be eye-opening. It is going to be calculating the cost of the debt, or how much interest are you going to pay if you continue with this strategy. The current strategy that you're on is a strategy, and that is your current strategy. So if you're not quite sure, well, I don't know what my debt repayment strategy is, you're in one right now. We're going to give you additional options to consider, but be mindful that what you're doing is a current strategy. Now, what is that going to cost you? Calculate it, and it's not something that we expect you to do the math. Definitely do not. Sarah will drop the website where we use our website, hbcu.org/calculators. You can go there and you can use the calculators and just put in the information that you listed on this document, and then calculate what's the total interest, and then take all of the debts that you have and calculate what is the total interest on all of those debts. For most of us, this is going to be alarming. And I say this because I want to be honest, and I also want us to feel that. The reason that I say I want you to feel that is going back to behavioral finance. Now that I know that in this example, if I remain in this current debt repayment strategy, I'm going to pay almost $7,000 in interest, and it's going to take me 10 years. That is eye-opening. That is information. That gives me now motivation to find different alternatives and go back to your original goal. Where are you now? Why are you trying to go through this process? If you're trying to go through this process because maybe you are saving for another goal, or maybe you're just, you know what, I'm tired of having to pay so much in interest, use that to help you stay motivated. Because as much as we will give you different tools, the reality is life happens. We're clearly living through a year of example of showing us how life can change completely. And there may be other factors that may prevent us from maybe moving forward in the direction that we want. And having a good focus is always going to be critical. So what are some different repayment strategies? Now that we know how much it's going to cost us to continue with the current strategy that we're on, what are the different options? One of the first one is looking for different rates. Essentially, this is going to be known as refinancing. There are a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can take the debt that you currently have and borrow a personal loan. So let's say I have $15,000 in debt, maybe $5,000 on a credit card, $5,000 on a private loan, and $5,000 on a car loan. I may decide to lump all of those, take out a $15,000 loan, and pay off all that other debt so that I now have one loan. Or I could decide to refinance. And you can refinance most of your debt separately. You can take your mortgage and refinance it. You can take your auto loan, your student loan. And what exactly does that mean? Refinancing means when I take the debt that I have with company A, and let's say that that's at 5%, but company B is offering it at 4%. Company B will pay off company A, and now my new loan lives with company B. So at a 4% loan, in just that transaction, I have now saved interest. And we'll calculate and show you how that exactly looks. There are times that even though the interest rate may be lower, if you extend your repayment, you may end up paying a little bit more. So we'll help you figure out when does this make sense for you to refinance. And everyone's situation is different. For some of us, we may decide we need to refinance to increase our current cash flow. So even if it pushes it out, you may decide to do that, or you may decide to accelerate your payments. To give you an example of sort of where rates are currently, I'd say if you have a mortgage rate anything over 3.5%, 4%, I would highly encourage you to look at refinancing your mortgage, or at least speaking to a mortgage loan originator. They can do the math for you. They can walk you through what it would possibly look like. When you're looking at possibly refinancing a mortgage, there's a lot of different things that go into this. And we actually have on our YouTube page, we have a couple of different webinars that we've done about refinancing. Specifically, we talk about mortgages as well. But you want to not only look at the rate of the loan for your mortgage, but also other fees, especially closing costs. There are many lenders currently that have very attractive, very low interest rates, but their closing costs are pretty significant. I've seen some that are like $10,000, $15,000 in closing costs, which means that even though, yes, your rate may be lower, you may not end up saving as much as you think, or it may take you 7 or 8 years for you to actually save money versus if you go with a maybe slightly higher interest rate that has significantly low or no closing costs. Auto refinance, again, anything over 3%, I would look at. Student loans, if you have federal student loans, this is not the time to refinance. With federal student loans, they are currently at 0% through the end of the year. We don't know what's going to happen come January. There's a lot that's been on the news with President-elect Biden, what he may not do. So if you do have federal student loans, our recommendation is keep them with the federal government. Let's see what happens, but definitely do not refinance now because your rate is at 0. You're not going to get that rate anywhere else. If you have a private student loan that's held outside of the federal government, it may also be good for you to maybe look around, but possibly wait and see what happens in the next month or two. If substantial changes happen to the federal student loans, it would not surprise me if private student lenders decide to make their rates a little bit more competitive. Again, we don't know. That's one of the things here. Sarah and I are always very honest with you with what we do know and what we don't know, but these are some considerations for you. There's also debt consolidation loans. Debt consolidation loan is very similar to a personal loan in the sense that you are taking on a loan with an institution, and those funds are then being taken to pay off the other debt that you have. What makes a personal loan and a debt consolidation loan different is that with a personal loan, the funds go to you. So I may take a $15,000 personal loan and I may say, you know what, that 15,000 is for me to pay off A, B, and C. But ultimately, it is up to me to do that. A debt consolidation loan, the lender that you're borrowing the funds with, they're the ones that are going to actually pay off that debt on your behalf. So they will write out a check, they'll wire the money, they will pay off those A, B, and C debts that you have. This is where, again, knowing our personalities makes a difference. If you know that, yes, I'm going to get the personal loan and I will indeed have that money deposited in my checking account and I will make those payments, that may be a good option for you. If you think, I don't want any temptation, I'd rather just have someone else do it, debt consolidation loan may be better. The rates and terms do tend to be a little bit different. So I would definitely look with your financial institution. I would look around before deciding on which one to go with, if this is one of the paths that makes sense for you. Credit card balance transfers. We are coming upon the time, typically it's around January, but we are almost there, in which you'll see a lot of credit card balance transfer offers. This year has been substantially different because with COVID, many credit card providers have reduced their interest rates. So if you have a significant amount, and that is for you to decide. Everyone has different budgets, everyone has different circumstances. So significant for someone may be 2,000, significant for someone else maybe 5 or 10 or 20,000. So whatever that amount is as you define it within your financial situation, if you have a credit card balance, a credit card balance that is one that is higher and you're not able to pay in full, you're paying a significant amount in interest rate, before looking at possibly doing a credit card balance transfer, I would recommend actually reaching out to the credit card provider and seeing if they offer any rate discounts. If during this time they could either reduce the rate, if they can allow you 6 months of reduced rate, sometimes a year. Every credit card company is doing it differently, especially working at the hospitals. Many credit card companies and lenders are offering additional benefits to those that are in the front line. So definitely contact the credit card company before looking at possibly doing a balance transfer, or do your research about the balance transfer and then call the credit card company, see if they have any good options for you, and then possibly proceed with the credit card balance transfer if they don't. So what exactly is a credit card balance transfer? A credit card balance transfer is very similar to the other concepts of having debt with company A and bringing it over to company B. One of the things that makes a credit card balance transfer a popular option is that it does reduce the rate to typically 0%. However, you typically have to pay a fee depending on the credit card company. For some, it's as low as 1%. For some, it could be 3 to 5% of your balance. So even though the interest rate is at 0, that fee, depending on your balance, could be $500, it could be $50. It really will depend. So we encourage you to do the math before you do the transfer if you do go that option. Some challenges or some reason that folks usually are not as successful with credit card balance transfers, going back again to behavioral science. Many of us are very optimistic, which is wonderful, but we do what's known as planning fallacy. We think that in the future, we're going to be able to get things done that we could not get done today. As a result, what happens with individuals, and we've seen this time and time again, you may put 5,000 on a credit card balance transfer. Oh, I have a year. I'll get to it. And then you continue to add debt onto that credit card, or you don't make a monthly payment schedule, and before you know it, the year is almost up and that balance has not shrank significantly. One of the things that we recommend if you are going to do a credit card balance transfer, do the balance transfer. Do not use the credit card, or use it for something like a Netflix, Spotify, some sort of reoccurring monthly subscription that's fairly inexpensive, under $20, $50, make sure you pay that off in full, but also have a plan. So if my balance is $12,000, okay, I'm going to transfer that, but I'm going to have to budget $1,000 every month so that I can pay off that credit card within that 1 year, and set that up in automatic payments, maybe every 2 weeks or every week, month, depending on what your frequency of how often you're getting paid. So you have a plan going into it. One of the things that we want to point out, and this is why I spoke about, if you have federal student loans, now is not a time to refinance those. When you refinance, when you take the debt from one company to another, whether that's a refinance or consolidation, a balance transfer, you are going to lose the benefits that are of the original debt. You may be eligible for new benefits with the new debt, but you've lost all of the original. Hence, for the federal student loans, if we refinance those to a private lender, I would no longer be eligible for the federal benefits. So that's something to keep in mind. We know we're going through a lot. We will give you some resources so that if you do have any questions, if you want to talk through this, we'll give you some of this information. For student loans, I've talked about this, so I'm not going to get into too much detail at this point, other than federal consolidation is different than private refinancing. Federal consolidation allows you to take your federal student loans and they would still remain within the federal loans, but instead of having a loan from undergrad, a loan from sophomore, etc., first year, second year, you would combine all of those into one loan. For any of you, and all of you would potentially qualify based off of your employer, if you think you're eligible for public service loan forgiveness, you may not want to do a federal consolidation if your payments have already counted towards public service loan forgiveness. Because if you consolidate, that may change the count of the payments that are eligible. Also, if you go into a private company, which would be a not-for-profit, it would be anyone outside of the federal government, for profit as well, then you would lose the opportunity to possibly be eligible for federal loan forgiveness through the public service loan program. So it's another reason to really think it through, and we do have some presentations on our YouTube channel as well if you want to get more details when it comes to student loans. Another important piece is researching tax laws. And if you don't do your own taxes, that's fine, but maybe reach out to your accountant, reach out to the person who does your taxes. There are some debt that we often will get the question, well, or you may hear good debt versus bad debt. There are different things to think, different consideration when you're thinking about repaying debt. If I have a credit card and I have student loans, the credit card debt, I do not get to write that off. Excuse me, the interest that I pay on that credit card debt, I don't get to write that off. On your student loans, depending on your adjusted gross income, it does vary if you're single versus married. You can deduct up to $2,500 as long as you fall under, and I want to say it's about $80,000 if you're single. After that, you're not eligible, and if you hit a certain point, it does get phased out based off your income. So not everyone will necessarily qualify, but depending on your income level, you may qualify to have up to $2,500 of your student loan interest rate deducted from your taxable liability. So I'm just going to do very simple math. Let's say that I earned $52,500 and I paid $2,500 in student loan interest. My taxable liability will go down to $50,000. So that's why if you have to choose over paying the credit cards faster than the student loan interest, than the student loans, many would recommend focusing on the credit card, because at least with the student loan, you can write off part of that interest. I do want to clarify, we're not saying don't pay off the student loans. We're not saying delay them forever. Just be mindful then when you're comparing which one to pay off, taxes does play into it. So this is another component to talk to a tax professional to review your finances. Home mortgage interest rate deduction is another one, home equity loan interest deduction. I do want to point out that in the past, individuals would sometimes take out a home equity loan and pay off their credit card and then write off that interest. That is no longer allowed. So the IRS tax laws changed a couple years ago. So you want to be mindful that now for your home mortgage or equity loan interest to be deducted, it has to be tied to improvements to your primary home. So there are changes in the laws. So if you've done something in the past, definitely encourage you to speak to a tax professional as part of that strategy. Credit card is important when we're talking about debt repayment. We've spoken about, okay, how much does it cost me in interest? What is the total cost of my debt? How do I reduce that total cost? I can refinance, great. But how is that refinance impacted, or what impacts that refinancing option and the interest rate you could possibly get? The credit score. And that's one of big factors. And we will talk about other strategies outside of refinancing because it may not be for everyone. So we'll talk about those shortly. But I do want to point out that sometimes you may be better off working on improving your credit score than looking to refinance, because moving from one credit tier to another may save you significantly more than accelerating or doing a refinance today. Or you can refinance today, but know that you're not stuck with that refinance. You can refinance multiple times, assuming that it's beneficial to you, that your credit score has improved. But do be mindful that the more times that you refinance, it may impact your credit score too. So you don't want to be doing it too frequently. And we do also have a credit presentation that we have on our YouTube channel that you're welcome to look at. But I do want to point out here that if you're not quite sure, this is just an example, but every lender will have something similar in which basically they will take X to Z credit score and determine if you fall within this range, we're going to give you, this is going to be the interest rate that you're going to be charged. Some financial institutions will be very open. They'll tell you, okay, yeah, you may qualify for XYZ without you even having to apply. So as you're doing the research, reach out to them, ask, and you never know. So just ask. Some may not be able to tell you, but some may. Also, if you are shopping around, which we do recommend, and that means shopping around, going to different lenders. So if I'm interested in doing an auto refi, yes, I'm going to look at HBCU, but I'm also going to look at company B and company C. If you're going to do that within a 2-week period, so that if I'm looking for that auto refinance, even though I've applied at 3 different institutions, it would be treated as one credit inquiry because I did it within a 2-week period. The credit bureaus understand that you're looking for a rate, you're rate shopping, as they call it. As a result, it will not impact your credit score 3 times, but only once. If, however, you're applying for a student loan and an auto refinance, multiple lenders, but within that 2-week period, those would be 2 inquiries because they're 2 different product types. Annual credit report is where you can go get your credit report. Very often we have seen individuals that the first time that they see their credit report or the first time they see their credit score is when we pull that. I want you to be empowered. I want you to have this information going into it so that you know beforehand where you stand. One of the things you can do is you can pull it for free. It will not impact your credit score. And also, it's now available once a week. You can pull it. Because of COVID, they've changed this through April 2021. So take advantage of this. The credit scores that you will get on many different apps, most of the financial institutions will give you your credit score. Your credit card company will give you your credit score. Those are accurate. Just be mindful that they may not be pulled from the same bureau that a lender may be pulling. So for example, if I use my credit card app and they use Experian, I go to a financial institution, they might be using TransUnion. So the credit scores may not be exact. Typically, they will almost never be the same, but they typically will be within that same range. So now that we've talked about what the total cost of the debt is, how are some ways to reduce that, let's look at comparing different options and how do you put all of this together. So I'm going to start off with a tempting offer in which you have a $10,000 debt. I'm just going to say loan, and actually I'll say credit card. $10,000 credit card, it's being charged at 21%, and you can pay about $300 a month, and you have 2 different options. And before I move forward, I usually get the question, 21, that seems really high. Some store cards have rates as high as 25, 26, especially a lot of the popular ones. So you'd be surprised. So take a look at your interest rates because it may be that high and you just may not know it. let's say you get an offer to do a 1.99 balance transfer for 12 months, and then it goes to 10.99, or you could do a debt consolidation loan for 7.99 for 5 years. Which option may be the best one? It will depend. Why will it depend? Well, remember that you said you were comfortable paying $300 a month. With a balance transfer, that rate is locked in for typically a year. Some credit cards are doing 18 months. Some have shortened it. It depends. It's been changing, especially in the past couple of months. But regardless, you're locked in typically for a set period. So in order for that credit card to be paid off, you would have to pay $842 a month. But you aren't able to because you said you're able to pay $300 a month. So in that situation, you would actually pay your balance off in 38 months, and then the interest would be $964. So in this situation, if I'm paying $964, I'm still going to technically be paying less than I was if I had stayed with my original strategy, which was the $10,000 at the 21%, or essentially not doing something different. But in this situation, my total interest would be $964, so I have reduced it. But this is because I'm assuming a couple of things. I am assuming that I am not adding on additional debt. And that's going to be the key for this balance transfer on a credit card. It's not adding on additional debt to that credit card. If you go with the a debt consolidation, your monthly payment, it is set for a time period. So you would be having to pay $203 a month for 5 years. Your total interest would be $2,100, but you said you were comfortable with $300. So if you're actually able to pay more, that is what we would recommend, is to continue paying what you can so that you can be done faster. So here you can see that in these examples, you'll see how we're essentially doing what we talked about earlier. We're comparing what is that total interest going to be? What is that total cost? But we're also taking into account what is the reality? What am I comfortable paying? And what are the barriers that I'm adding so that I'm not adding on additional debt? I'm going to turn it over now to Sarah, and Sarah's going to talk about much more specific strategies on how you can take the money that you have and apply it towards the current debt. So which one may you pay first, etc.
Thanks, Victoria. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Scruggs. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at the Credit Union, and I'm glad you all have joined us this evening. And if you weren't here at the beginning, please don't hesitate to ask us questions in the questions feature or chat box. It's either to the right-hand side of your screen or up at the top. I know a few people have joined us a little bit after, so I want to make sure that you all know you're welcome to submit questions throughout. We will have time at the end to go over questions, so if you have any that you'd like to hold till the end, you can do that as well. Talking a little bit more about specific repayment strategies, like Migdalia said, you're on a strategy right now, technically, even though it may not be a thought through strategy that you have. So we're going to talk a little bit about some that hopefully we can think through together. The first being, I'm pretty sure the first is snowball. And the snowball method focuses on the smallest debt first. So let's say you have 3 different debts. You have one that is $10,000, you have one that is $1,000, and you have one that is $15,000. You're going to start on the $1,000 because when you make a snowball, you start little, but it builds into something big. And so people who have a specific money personality, they're thinking towards, okay, hitting little goals helps me to see the end goal and helps me to get there quicker. I know for myself, this is definitely the case. If I'm working on a large project, I've got to set up small tasks for myself to be able to accomplish so that I'll actually reach my end goal. And so if you're someone who really does like that, kind of like constant accomplishment, small goals, snowball may be a really good method for you. The second would be avalanche. And so with an avalanche means you start really big, right? And it comes on down. So you're focusing on the highest interest first. This is different than snowball in that you're looking at the interest rates because the interest rates is what you're being charged for that loan. So you start high, you start paying aggressively on that highest interest rate first, and then you focus on the others. Avalanche is definitely for people whose money personality is, okay, I know that I will be motivated by paying off the largest interest rate first. And it's okay if I don't see big movement in the first few weeks, months, years. And that's okay for me because I know I'll still be motivated to pay it off. If that is you, there definitely could be opportunity to save some money by using this method. And if you're using a not well thought through strategy right now, both of these ways could be opportunities for saving some money. Then there's the sprinkle method, and this is probably a strategy you've been using in the past and probably one we'll all use in the future for different situations, where we just spread extra payments as we like, and there's no real specific strategy of tackling the largest or the smallest. So how do we compare these um, different strategies, and how do we pick which one may be best for us? Like I said, you really do need to think about, okay, how how am I best suited to tackle these things? I want to make sure that you're thinking about your personality specifically through all of this because every person is different, and the end goal is to pay off all of your debt, right? And so maybe it takes us a little longer to get there, but if we're actually accomplishing it, that's a good thing. So you'll see that we have these two loans, right? And you can see that we have 1,000 at 25%, and we're paying $95 a month. And then we have B, which is 500 at 15%, and we're paying $45 a month. So in total, we're paying $140 a month. What if we decided, you know what, I actually have $200 a month that I can spend on my debt? So using these two strategies, where are we going to put that? Well, for Snowball, we are going to put that additional money towards the $500 loan. So we'll now be paying $105 monthly toward that loan, and we'll actually be paying it off in 4.8 months. And so we'll hit this goal really quickly to pay off one of those. And that's exactly what Snowball wants you to do, is we want you to pay those off quickly because you see those results quickly, and that will keep you going. If that is how motivation works for you, great. This is a great method. And so once you're done paying that off, you're able to then move on to your larger a little bit quicker because you paid that off really quickly. So then you can put your entire $200 towards the other loan. So this could be a really good method, again, if you are the person who needs kind of to meet goals very quickly. I know for myself, I like to make those little goals so that I can build up to the big goal. So what does this look like with Avalanche method? We are going to be putting um, that additional $60 towards loan A because of that 25% interest. Just so happens that it's also $1,000. But what we want you to understand is it's that 25% interest that's really important, our highest interest rate. And so we're going to be putting $155 a month towards this particular loan. This is now paid off in 8 months and $85 of interest. And so then once that's paid off, we put all of our $200 towards our $500 debt, and that's paid off in 9 months. And so you'll see that with Snowball, we've saved a little bit of time by putting all all that extra $60 towards the small one first and then the large one. But we've saved a little bit of money with Avalanche. So these are two things that you can compare. I know for myself, I would do better with Snowball because I need those goals, and meeting those goals is really helpful and motivating to me. Some people may say, well, you should always go with Avalanche because it will save you, a few dollars. And I'll be honest with you, it may not actually save me a few dollars taking myself into consideration because I may give up on putting that extra $60 to that highest loan because I'm not seeing much movement on it. I'm not seeing that rate go down. I'm not seeing um, that loan really dwindle quickly, and I want it to. And so that I may lose motivation. So you can see why you really do have to weigh your own personality as well as the savings costs. Like I said, this is all about motivation because if something looks like a great, like avalanche, you're like, wow, I'm going to save, $20, $30 by doing the avalanche method. Um, but in reality, you're one of those people who really loses motivation and drive to complete something if you're not able to accomplish something pretty quickly. I really recommend that you weigh these things when you're thinking about making these decisions about what strategy may be best for you. And know that if a strategy is not working for you, it's okay to change your strategy. We all pivot, we all do different things in our jobs every day. And so we can do that with financial matters as well. So let's say we had an amazing day. We won the lottery. We got $10,000 to use on paying towards our debt. So where should that $10,000 payment go? And this is something that we see often with people who may get a tax return. Um, they want to pay off debt once they get that tax return. So what do you do with it? We're using that large number so that you all can see the differences, but know that this can happen even with, maybe a small bonus or money from a birthday, Christmas. That can all happen under this. And you can take these numbers and use our calculators. I put it in the chat earlier this evening. Use our calculators to really look through what may be best for you when the time comes when you do have a little extra cash on hand. So we're using two really large debts that a lot of people have in life, which is mortgage and student loan. These are probably some of the larger debts we all have in our lives. So something to think about. So we want to see both of our interest rates and the total interests. And this is at the end of the loan, so the end of the life of the loan. Most mortgages are 30 years long, so your interest is normally pretty high. Um, and student loan interest can be pretty large as well. A lot of people pay on those for 20, 25 years. So that total interest does add up to be quite a bit. So if we have this additional $10,000, where should we put it? Should we put it towards our mortgage or our student loan? Well, let's crunch these numbers and see what would be best. So you can see we're putting it towards the student loan first. So that drops the student loan interest by about $6,000, which is really great. That saves us $6,000. That's a lot that you can use over time. Well, what if we put it towards our mortgage? So we put $10,000 towards our mortgage. That saves us about $10,000. And so you'll see that the better choice here was to put it towards the mortgage because you're going to be saving a little bit more money. Um, but like I said, that's using avalanche method where you're saving a little bit more money. And then we're using snowball with our student loan debt. So you really do have to choose, okay, what will actually motivate me to finish making these payments and finally get that debt down? I will say it's a little bit different for these larger loans, like a mortgage and a student loan, because it's pretty unlikely that you're going to pay off your student loan of $40,000 really quickly and see that instant gratification like you would with a smaller debt. But it is something to keep in mind. Now we're talking about outsmarting our debt. So we're going to go into a couple of different scenarios with this specific debt that we have. So it's $10,000 loan at 18% for 5 years. McJolly spoke about refinancing. And this is just a pretty straightforward concept. You find out there is a lower interest rate that you can get with your great credit score. Awesome. You make it happen, you apply for refinancing, and you get a 10% rate. Your monthly payment is now at $212 because you have the same terms of 5 years. So you're still paying it off over 5 years. So that means your monthly payment lowers. Your interest over the life of loan goes down. Obviously, if the interest rate goes down, your interest goes down and the total cost of the loan goes down. So those are all good things. So what if we decided after refinancing, we want to pay more than the minimum? We were paying 254 and it was going just fine before this. So why don't we keep paying that number? You'll save even a little bit more. About 600 additional dollars can be saved. That's a lot of things you can do with $600. There are a lot of things you can do with $600. Then there's also the round up method. This method says, you know what? 254 is kind of a random number, and I want it to be more rounded. I want to be able to just put into my bank statement like $275 a month goes here because that's a good rounded number. And we have it in our budget. That's an important thing to think of as well. And so you pay $275 a month, you're going to save additional money. So you see from top, the current loan that you have, all the way to the bottom, you're saving about almost $4,000 by doing this. So what we're really encouraging you to do is that you want to take time to actually think through your strategies. Like I said, life goes extremely quickly. I don't know about you, but that's how I'm feeling these days. And sometimes making no decision at all is making a decision. That's making a decision to not save that $3,273. That's making that decision because maybe we're just overwhelmed with all of the ways we can save money. But we really encourage you take some time and think through the strategies that you're using to pay off your debt. Like we said, please use our calculators. I truly don't know if I could do it by hand. I'm thankful that our calculators can help us online. And you can find different calculators there, specifically about debt, yes, but also about credit cards, about mortgages, auto loans, things of that nature. So please don't hesitate to use that resource. And this is a question that we get quite a bit because we understand not everybody is able to pay off their debt every single month. So what if your debt is greater than your income? There's something called a debt management plan, or a DMP is what you'll hear from people. A debt management plan is not the same as a debt settlement plan. And I appreciate someone asked, what does that mean when a credit card company offers a debt settlement? And is that bad? Here is why we don't recommend a debt settlement. And that is because a debt settlement means that you're not actually paying off all of your debt. And that will then hinder you from getting additional loans in the future because it will impact your credit report. It will impact your credit score, and it will stay on there for quite some time. And so we really recommend, if you are in a situation where you cannot pay all of your debt, to think about a debt management plan. A debt management plan means that you do pay off all of your debt. It just means that a nonprofit, like one of our partners who we'll speak about in a moment, they work with companies on lowering your interest rates. So you are paying off all of your actual debt. They're just lowering their interest rates on your debt. And they provide financial counseling, personalized financial counseling for you. And the cost is based off of the state. There is a cost that comes with the debt management plan. If there wasn't, probably everybody would be on one, right? But there is a cost. And so a nonprofit who works with you will let you know maybe if you're a good candidate for a debt management plan and if it would make sense for you to pay those additional costs to be on the debt management plan. That's why I love our partner GreenPath, who works with everyone to make sure that this would be the best option for them at the time. Like anything in life, there are pros and cons to a debt management plan. Um, and this is really something to take into consideration. And that is why working with a nonprofit like Green Path is your best option to be able to get on one of these plans if necessary. Because at the end of the day, they only want to put you on a debt management plan if it is entirely necessary for your situation. So that is really important to think about. I've mentioned them about probably 5 times in the last 2 minutes, but GreenPath Financial Wellness is our partner here at the credit union. They offer free financial counseling for all of our community members, including everyone on this call. You do not have to be um, a member of the credit union to use this service because we truly believe that the better fit financially our community is, the better our community will be. And so they offer free budget counseling, credit report review, as well as COVID-19 counseling. So if anyone in your family is struggling with income or just needs help creating a budget for the first time or thinking through their credit report, this is a great first place to go. This is one-on-one personal counseling. They have flexible hours, so you all work in hospitals. You may have difficult hours to work around. They can accommodate a lot of those hours. So we really recommend speaking with them. It is highly confidential. They don't report back to us what you all have talked about. Um, and so this is something that you and your family members can use. Please remember this is you and anyone in your household. So please share this information widely because we want people to lead financially well lives. So what are your next steps? We have just gone through this, I mean, it's just jam-packed presentation with so much information for you all to learn in about 50 minutes. So what do you do now? First, I recommend checking out your credit score. Okay, if you've never seen your credit report or your credit score, make sure that you're checking in on that. I know, like Migdalia said, my credit card company provides me with my credit score, but now that annualcreditreport.com is doing free credit reports every week, I know that I'm checking in on my credit report about once every 6 months, just to make sure that all of my credit reports are showing the loans that I have, the debt that I have, and nothing more. And so I'm checking in on those, making sure that all of those are good to go. Next, understand what you owe. You truly can't start on any of these strategies until you know what debts you do have. So make sure you lay those out and plan those. Do the math. Like we said, the calculating of this takes time. You have to prioritize this if you want to put these debts first and make sure that you can and feel kind of like the power of being empowered to know all of this. And then know your personality. To be honest with you, this is how you're going to make the decisions about your strategies. And really, this could go right at the top too, because every decision that you make will come down to your personality. If you're not the type of person that's going to just on a Saturday sit down and do the math or understand what you owe, well, then make sure that you bundle it with something that you love to do. Maybe you love to watch just like amazing reality television. Well, then say for every hour that I sit down and do the math and know my personality, I'll give myself an episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So know your personality and know what will work for you. And then reduce, don't add debt. This is probably the most important on here is that we have to remember when we are trying to reduce our debt, it can be extremely easy to just swipe that credit card and add to the debt. When in reality, we want to reduce that debt. We're doing everything in our power. If you get all of these things right, but then continue to add debt onto the debt you already have, it is going to be extremely difficult for you to see those goals achieved. So we really recommend thinking through your purchases and making sure that if you do add debt, it is debt that you need to add, it's necessary. Um, and at the end of the day, all of this that we've said today is just principles to consider. You are your own expert on this. You know all of your numbers and things of that nature. If you need additional advice, we recommend that you go to a professional, either a certified financial professional or someone who is certified to help you with these things, tax advisors, so on and so forth. And HBCU is here. We are on a lot of social media channels, so please go there. We do have a YouTube page that has a lot of our recordings on it. So if you're particularly interested in maybe home buying or student loans, we do have those recordings available there. And like Migdalia said, we will be sending out an email with all of this information, including the presentation as well as handouts for you all to use. Those will be in your inboxes either tomorrow or Friday, so that you all can um, have all this information in your back pocket, because we went through a lot and we understand.